video, I'm going to take the same concept that we looked at when we built triads above a major and a minor scale, and instead now we're going to build seventh chords. Because in the same way that you can build triads starting on any note, and therefore you can build triads above a major scale or a minor scale, so it would be logical that you can just add the seventh to any one of those triads, and you would end up with a seventh chord, again, built above a member, a scale degree, from either major or minor. So that is what I've presented here on the board. What we have essentially is now a C major scale, exactly the same as we had before. You'll remember when I did the triads, I had the C major scale in one color, and then I just had the triads above each of the scale members. And so we have that same thing. However, this time I've added another note to the triads, and I've created seventh chords. Now, as you know, when you create seventh chords, those are different from triads. They have a slightly different name. The name is a combination of the triad that occurs at the bottom of the seventh chord, and then you add on the name for the seventh interval that occurs between the root of the chord and the seventh. So, when you do that for major, these are the chords that result. And at this point, I assume you get the concept here. You just need to know the information. And again, you can work this out. It's not hard. You have all the information to be able to work this out. But this might help to kind of summarize it for you to give you a starting point. If there's any information up here on the board as I go through it that you're not quite sure, I don't quite understand that, where did you get that from? Ask me in class, or go back to the earlier videos about this kind of seventh chord construction and make sure you understand how the chords are put together. Because assuming you know that, then this should make a lot of sense to you at this point, because what I'm doing here is simply building those same kind of seventh chords above each member of the scale. So let's go through and see what we have. Starting here at the beginning, the first scale degree creates a major, major 7 chord, C, E, G, B. That creates a major, major 7 chord. The chord notation for that is C to tell you about the triad, and triangle 7 to refer to the major, major 7. There's a major 7. So we have major triad, major 7. The second chord creates a minor, minor 7th chord. D minor triad, minor 7th, D minor 7. Remember, 7 on its own refers to a minor 7th, is kind of the standard starting point for these kind of chords. So anytime you have a 7 on its own, that means it's a minor 7. So we have D minor triad with a minor 7. The third one becomes E minor 7. It's a minor, minor 7 chord. Again, happens to be built on E. The fourth chord is a major, major 7. It is F, major, major 7 in this key. The 5 chord is G, major, minor 7. This one's significant. This is one that I would just say, just store that away in the back of your mind. That 5 chord is a major, minor 7 chord. Down the road, that sound world of the major, minor 7 chord, particularly on the 5th scale degree, is going to be important. It's going to have an important relationship to the 1st scale degree, and it's going to have an important relationship in the sense of 5 to 1 that is going to become important and significant later on as we look at some other things that you can do with major, minor 7 chords. So the major, minor 7 sound, that's one just to keep a careful note of. There's nothing special about it in the sense that all I've done here is create a 7th chord, and it happens to naturally be a major, minor 7 chord, but it becomes significant when we start putting it in context. And then the 6th scale degree is a minor chord. It is a minor, minor 7th chord, and the 7th scale degree is a diminished minor, or as we sometimes call half diminished chord, half diminished 7th chord. And that has a diminished triad and a minor 7. So the other thing I put up here, you'll remember when we talked about chord symbol notation and how you notate things, we said sometimes you see the half diminished 7 as a circle with a slash through it. And so if you do, the chord symbol would look like this, the Roman numeral would look like this. And while I'm on that subject, notice that for the Roman numerals, we simply add the type of 7th to the edge of the Roman numeral to create a symbol that works generically for any key. We can say that the 4 chord, when added a 7th within the context of major, becomes a major major 7th, because the 4 as a Roman numeral is capital and tells you that it's a major chord, so that's the 4 chord is major, and it has a major 7th added to it. So we can tell from the Roman numeral the same information we get from up here. We can tell that the quality of the chord is just not key specific. It's more generic, so we can talk about it for any particular key at any time. So those are the chords for major. Now, the question would be, what happens if indeed we turn this into minor? So let's go ahead and do that and see if we can make sense of the whole thing in minor. We're going to find that we have a different set of qualities. And you'll remember that in minor, we have the added challenge of the 7th scale degree, which can sometimes be in its natural state and sometimes, more often in fact, in its raised state as a leading tone. So if we change this to minor, I will insert the key signature here. It's going to be a little bit cramped, but hopefully you'll bear with me. So we have the minor key signature for C minor. That changes these chords. Suddenly this is an E flat, suddenly this is an A flat, and so on all the way through. That's going to change the quality of the chords, of course, as well. The other thing we need to bear in mind is that in most cases, the B will be natural, and that is worth keeping in mind because it too will change the quality of the chord. Now, I'm going to give you the qualities of these chords as they occur with the natural in place. And that's going to result in a very odd chord that we have not really encountered here, and it just really isn't used very often. So we're not going to dwell on that too much, the 3 chord. We'll get there in a moment, but we aren't going to dwell on it a lot. The 5 chord and the 7 chord, however, are most often used with, they're first of all more often used than the 3 chord, and when they're used, they are most often used with the raised leading tone. So that will mean that we will look at these with the B natural in place to find the quality we would encounter most of the time. But I want you to be aware that if you were to encounter this without the raised leading tone, with the 7th scale degree in its natural state, remember we call that the subtonic, if we have the subtonic rather than the leading tone, then we would have a different chord quality. And we just have to be aware of that. It can happen. It's so rare and so unique and unusual that we're not going to dwell on it right now. We'll encounter it if we encounter it, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, sort of thing. Okay, so what are the qualities that we come up with? Well, this first chord now becomes a minor 7. The second chord, remember the bottom triad is diminished in a minor key. So this becomes a diminished minor or half diminished 7 chord. The 3 chord, as I said, this is a tricky one because we now have an augmented minor chord. We've never really encountered one of those, an augmented minor 7. And it's so unusual that we really just don't even need to worry about it. I'm going to kind of cross it through to say it does exist in theory, but it's not going to be encountered very often, so we're just really not going to worry about it. All right? Now, if this was a B flat, then we would have a major minor 7 chord. That's a significant chord, but it has implications in other ways that we'll get to down the road. So we won't worry too much about this 3 chord at this point in time. The 4 chord is now a minor chord. The 5 chord is, with the natural in place, a major minor 7 chord. Again, that's significant sound world. And the 6 chord, remember this is A flat, so this creates, again, in this case, A flat, C, E, G natural, also a major minor 7 chord. Again, with the 7th added, the 6th chord is not used a great deal. The 6th chord is used often in harmonic progressions without the 7th added. With the 7th added, it's just not used very much. But we'll observe it as we go past. And the last one now creates, remember this is an A flat, so this is B natural, D, F, A flat. This is a diminished 7, or fully diminished 7. The other type of 7th chord we have, where we have a diminished triad and a diminished 7, a fully diminished 7. What are our Roman numerals for each of these? Well, this would be a 1 minor and a minor 7. This is the diminished minor, so this would be 2, diminished 7. Sometimes, depending on the notation system, written like that. The 3 chord we're not even going to worry about. All right? The 4 chord is a minor minor 7, so that would be a 4, and we just have a 7. The 5 chord major minor 7, so capital 5, 7. The 6 chord major, so 6 major minor 7. The 7 chord is fully diminished, so that would be 7 diminished, 7 diminished, remember, or in some notation systems where you're using the slash for the half diminished, this becomes the fully diminished. That's the bit that's a little bit confusing because it looks similar to the other system's half diminished 7. So you remember that from the video on chord symbols and chord names. If we were to do this for the guitar chord symbols above, we would simply insert in the appropriate ones. This time we have C minor 7. This time we have D diminished 7 or D half diminished 7, depending on, again, the system you're using. We're not going to worry about the 3 chord. The 4 chord, we have F, in this case, minor 7. And the 5 chord, we have G major minor 7. So the chord symbol is for major. For A flat, we have major minor 7, so the chord symbol is major with a 7. And the final one is B fully diminished 7, of course notated this way if you're using the other system. So we have these various chord symbols that are the same really as the Roman numerals. The Roman numerals, as I say, are just more generic. The chord symbols are very specific to this particular key, C minor. So the concept today is 7th chord, the 7th chords that occur naturally above major and minor. What we'll find is that from time to time these chords are added, the 7th is added to the triad to create interesting harmonic sounds, to create something with a little bit more edge, a little bit more spice, a little bit more interest than just using the regular triad. And some of these are used much more often than others. You'll find that chords like the 2-7 chord and the 5-7 chord are used a great deal. But chords like the 1-7 chord and the 6-7 chord, and as I've said, the 3-7 chord, they're just not used very often. So you'll find some are used more, some are used less, some are used in certain specific ways, some can be used a little bit more generally or generically, or more often, just throughout a piece. And so when we get into talking about chord progressions, how to put together chord progressions, how you create chord progressions, when we get into that, we'll be talking more about whether or not to use the triad on its own or to add the 7th, and we'll be looking at different times in which that takes